Oh no, it's raining again. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in today. You know, we spend a lot of time planting trees, watering trees, doing what I call tree maintenance to keep the trees in a healthy state. It's a lot of work. You've heard me talk about that. It's not for the faint of heart, certainly, when you're planting a large number of trees like this. But today's kind of a fun day because we're going to be harvesting some fruit from some mulberry trees. So you maybe heard stories of your parents or grandparents harvesting mulberry trees, or you might even do it yourself on your property. Living here on an acreage in central Iowa, mulberry trees are very prevalent. You probably don't see too many of them in urban areas or in kind of a town setting because the mulberries create quite a mess when they drop their fruit. They stain sidewalks, they stain pavement, etc. So city planners don't like to put them in urban areas. However, out here in the country, very plentiful. And why is that? Because a bird will eat a mulberry and it passes through the bird without being digested. Bird sits on a fence, does what nature requires all animals to do, and then in a short amount of time a mulberry tree pops up. So you'll see mulberry trees in the countryside along fences quite a bit. There's a lot of people even in the country that say, hey, you should cut down a mulberry tree anytime you see it because it's invasive or it's a nuisance, etc. I think that's in the eye of the beholder because, you know, I don't really have a problem with mulberry trees because birds love them. We harvest the fruit from them. We actually sometimes will can the fruit. We'll turn it into jam or we'll use it for making pies or whatnot. And so today's kind of a fun day. We get to harvest some mulberries. I'm also going to walk you through the different types of mulberry trees. We have a couple of them on our property. Native Iowa mulberry is the red mulberry tree. But you will sometimes see white mulberry trees, which are a little bit more exotic and actually are more of a nuisance. And I'll get into that later when I highlight that tree in the video. But I want to turn this around here, give you an idea of what we're looking at in terms of our trees. And this is a mulberry tree that is probably seen better days. I'm going to get around here and show you the trunk system is completely cored out. And I don't know how old this tree is, but you can see it's very cored out in the middle there. I don't even know how it's standing, to be honest with you, with the winds that we get around here. But you can see the fruit here on the mulberry tree. Different stages. Here, kind of zoom in and see it, and that's when you want to pick it right there, is when it's nice and purple like that. Mulberry, if you've never had one, tastes a lot like a blackberry. It's kind of softer though, so it doesn't hold up as well sometimes when you're grabbing it or touching it. So I'm going to show you how we pick them. Again, if you pick a mulberry, a lot of times it'll just explode in your hand and leave a bunch of dark juice on your hand. So you can see I'm wearing all black today. It's 90 degrees and about 95 heat index, so not normally wearing black on a day like today, but I'm doing that because these mulberries are going to get all over the place and they will stain your clothing. Just like I mentioned, they stain cement, they will stain your clothing. So I'm wearing black pants, black shirt, old hat that I don't care if it gets marked up. But I'm going to grab some equipment and I will show you how we harvest mulberries. All right, so best way to do this is to grab an old sheet, one that is preferably darker in color. I've got an old red one here. Works great for this process. And you're going to take it and lay it down. Try to spread it out good underneath the limbs. And then, feel like you've got a pretty good coverage, just grab a branch and start shaking. And it's raining mulberries. Come over here. Once you feel like you've gotten a pretty good shake out of the tree, again, come forward, just grab the edges of your sheet, kind of corral everything to the middle and to the base, and you can kind of start going through, seeing what you have here. You're gonna have a little debris, obviously, but you can kind of see it's a pretty good handful there. Some of these are a little undersized, so we'll sort through those. But you can see they have a small stem on them. That's probably one of the downsides of this fruit, is de-stemming them can be pretty time consuming. And again, I mentioned the fruit is a little bit softer, so it tends to kind of pull apart and break up in your hand. And so what we do is, we want to make jams, we actually just cook that all the way through. So we'll add them to the pot. Obviously it's mostly sugar that goes in with it when you're making jam, but you can boil that, and you can de-stem them, or you can leave the stems in them. Just personal preference. But we did a jar a few years ago, looks like 2022, and it's really good. It's really delicious. So yeah, again, mulberry harvest, kind of fun, a little labor intensive, but kind of a nice nice treat. You can, like I said, we do mainly pies and jams with them. And we don't do it every year. We usually do it about every other year. Just depends on timing, just depends on where we're at, what we're doing. There's only a limited window of time to get these before they disappear, before they stop producing. And so, yeah, if you have mulberries on your property, it's kind of a fun thing to get the kids involved with, and good way to supplement your pie addiction if you have one. Okay, so started with this older tree and did a little bit of a harvest there. Didn't get a great yield. Probably should have started with his buddy next door, which quite a bit larger, younger, healthier tree. A lot more fruit that's ready to be shook out. But wanted to do a quick video of what I was referring to earlier about these trees in the countryside and old fences. So we've got a number of old fences on this property, and obviously that's a great place for trees to pop up, especially mulberry trees. This is an old fence line here, sort of in the middle of the property. But yeah, just going down the line here, there's different varieties of trees that pop up, but we have a lot of different types of trees. And as I mentioned in a previous video, one of my goals is to highlight, do some deeper dives on some of the variety of trees that are out here, both the native ones, the ones that were here before we got out here, but also the ones that we've been working on planting over the years. And so just going down this middle fence line, looking at some of these different trees. Here's a really nice one with some great fruit that's ready to be harvested as well. Some great coloration on the fruit, and just a really nice looking tree. Some good abundant mulberries ready to be shook out. And again, just continuing down this fence line here, another mulberry tree. This one is not quite at the stage of some of the other ones. You can see the fruit is not quite ripe, it's not quite big enough. Coloration is not quite there yet. Some of the branches are there. Here's one. But as a whole, still got a little bit of time to go. And here's a really big, plump tree that's got a lot of fruit. And I've already got the sheet already laid out here, ready to go. So we'll get under this one. This was kind of nice here because the deer had, looks like laid under here recently, pushed all the grass down, so you don't have to fight that. So let's get under here and just start shaking. See what happens. Some of these branches, of course the sun's not going to help me. Kind of hard to see. You can hear them hitting. They go up higher. So again, let's see, take our sheet and just fold it in towards the middle. Pretty good. Pretty good yield there. So yeah, you could spend days doing this with the mulberry trees if you felt so inclined. There's a couple nice ones. So yeah, but it is really warm out. I don't know how much more time we have today for this. Corn's looking good. They say knee high by the 4th of July, right? I think that's a thing of the past because we're 10 days out from the 4th of July and the corn is like over the shoulder. Of course, we've had some really nice rains and timely rains. Lots of good moisture and precipitation. So this is one of parts of the property as well that we cut hay from. So the clover and the alfalfa is looking good. Anyway, that's the quick down and dirty on harvesting mulberries. If you have access to a mulberry tree, it's a really fun activity for kids. Get the kids involved, get the grandkids involved. All you need is an old sheet, some darker colored clothes you don't mind getting dirty. Again, limited window to harvest, usually end of June through the middle to end of July, depending on your location. Makes great jam, also great pie. So get the kids out, get an old sheet out, and have fun picking mulberries. So we've just finished picking some red mulberries, and I wanted to bring you over to a different part of the property here to highlight a different variety of mulberry tree. So this is actually a white mulberry tree. If you live in Iowa, you know that mulberry trees are pretty prevalent, as I mentioned before. About 2/3 of the state, the red mulberry tree is native, with the exception of the northwest portion of the state. So where I'm located here in the central part of the state, there's red mulberry trees everywhere, as we've discussed and you've seen us pick. But we do have white mulberry trees as well. They're not as prevalent. Sometimes they're actually considered to be more of an exotic tree. They are not native. The white mulberry trees actually originated in China, and they were instrumental in the silk making industry. So the silkworm was very fond of white mulberry as a food source, and so they tried to introduce white mulberry trees in the US in the early 1800s, but it didn't really take. The silk making industry didn't really get established and didn't take as well as they had wanted it to be. So white mulberry trees are pretty rare. You don't see them as often here in Iowa as you do the red mulberries. Interesting thing to note about these trees is they are known to have this almost dual trunk system, just like this one. Perfect case study, perfect example, where that trunk will eventually split and the tree will probably fall over. So they're considered an invasive species, actually. They will outcompete other red mulberry varieties. They will cross-pollinate with red mulberries, and they will actually tend to dominate that when they do cross-pollinate. But they outcompete, and the trunk system itself is not as strong, just the way it develops and grows. And so what that translates to is, although they will outcompete red mulberries, oftentimes they don't produce as much fruit. The fruit they do produce is more of a pink. I'm going to pull this branch down here. Whoops. I don't know if you can see that here, but the white mulberry is more of a pink variety. And so you can see the difference between the two fruits here. The one on the left is clearly the red mulberry. Again, it tastes more like a blackberry. It's sweeter, but it can be tart at times depending on what stage you harvest it at. The white mulberry, on the other hand, is a degree or two sweeter. So you can see the fruit's not quite as big. When it's ready to harvest, this one's not quite ready to harvest, but when it is ready to harvest, it has more of a pink hue to it, more of a pink profile around the white. And so, again, very sweet. You know, good fruit to eat, definitely. It's just not as abundant as the red mulberry tree. You're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort trying to harvest, you know, a small amount of white mulberry. At least that's been our experience. Now, we only have a handful of white mulberry trees on the property, so maybe it's just our trees. Some of them are in different stages of life, obviously. This one, last year, these lower branches were actually producing and more abundant, so I don't know if this tree kind of looks like maybe it's on its way out. A couple of years ago, I harvested quite a bit off of this tree. Again, it took a while, but there just doesn't seem to be as much fruit on the white mulberries as the traditional red mulberries. So key takeaways from today: red mulberry tree native to Iowa, covers about 2/3 of the state with the exception of the northwest corner of the state. Very prolific, very abundant in terms of its fruit, in terms of the fruit quantity that it produces. Usually starts producing fruit around the 10-year mark. They can get up to 50, 60 feet tall. They're quite large once they get mature. On the flip side of it, the white mulberry, non-native tree, actually kind of invasive, will outcompete other trees, and the system that it has for its trunk tends to split in the middle, tends to sort of break in half. Much less abundant in terms of its fruit. Its fruit is sweeter than the red mulberry. It does taste better, depending on your preference or palate, but you're going to spend twice or 3 times the amount of time harvesting white mulberries as you will red mulberries. So anyway, just some information for you on the different varieties of mulberries. Pretty prolific, again, in the state of Iowa. And as I mentioned earlier, fun activity to get the kids involved with. So if you have access to a red mulberry or even a white mulberry, get out there and have some fun, pick some mulberries, and create some memories for your kids and grandkids. Gonna take you down another old fence line here on the property to demonstrate what we were talking about earlier. So, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, not a mulberry tree, mulberry tree, mulberry tree, not a mulberry tree, mulberry tree, honeysuckle, honeysuckle, gotta get rid of that, mulberry tree, younger mulberry trees, not a mulberry tree, mulberry tree, lots of fruit on it, mulberry tree, clearly not a mulberry tree, nice mature mulberry tree, lots of fruit on it, lots of fruit on this one too. Yeah, let's zoom in here. Oh, yeah, lots of good fruit there. Mulberry tree, continuing on, mulberry tree, and this is a big mulberry tree. This one's got a lot on it. Very mature tree here. This is probably the most prolific one on the property in terms of the fruit here. You can zoom in. It's crazy. Just everywhere. Anyway, just a quick illustration of what we were talking about in terms of old fences, even new fences out in the country, and the proliferation of mulberry trees. Again, some people think, hey, you need to get rid of those. You need to spray them, you need to cut them down, etc., etc. Not really bothering me, so I'm just going to keep them. And, you know, birds love them. Songbirds, it's a great source of food, shelter for small game. So, out in the country, unless it's growing into some utility or causing some issues with a water line or something like that, you know, no harm, no foul in terms of, you know, my perspective on them. So that's a wrap. That's the information I wanted to share with you today on mulberry trees. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you're enjoying this content, please like, subscribe, and share the channel. Get involved with conservation efforts in your community or on your property. And thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you soon.